Hey, hi, it's me. I heard you bitches were asking about the Habsburgs, so I'm here. Because if there's one thing I'm gonna do, it's talk shit about the Habsburgs. So grab a snack, bitch, because history story times are back. And I'm gonna tell you about my favorite Habsburg sibling, Isabella of Austria, also known as Queen Elizabeth of Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. And she's also the mother of y'all's little favorite, Christina of Denmark. And she was born July 18th, 1501, as the third child of Juana la Loca and Philip the Handsome, and the younger sister of Charles V. Isabella was born in Brussels and raised in the Habsburg Netherlands with her Aunt Margaret. Since for the short time that her parents were actually in her life, they were back and forth to Spain a lot. But her Aunt Margaret took very good care of all of the children and treated them as if they were her own. And all of the children received a very humanist but Catholic education. And Isabella's Holy Roman Emperor grandfather Maximilian was also heavily involved in the interests of the noblest children, especially when it came to marriage arrangements, because both Margaret and Maximilian wanted all of the children placed into royal households. And since these are the noblest children in Europe, and the girls do come with a very large dowry, they are pretty sought after. And when it comes to Isabella's hand in marriage, there's a lot of interest and there's a lot of negotiation. Her grandfather, Emperor Maximilian, and King Christian II of Denmark finally come to an agreement. Christian was initially interested in Isabella's older sister, Eleanor, but the Habsburgs felt that Eleanor's bloodline was just a little too valuable to marry off to the Danish, and instead offered Isabella, the middle sister, who is 12 years old and 19 years younger than the king. And the Habsburgs are like, perfect arrangement. So in July of 1514, she's married to him by proxy, with her grandfather Maximilian standing in on her wedding day for her husband. And then like a year and a bit later, she turns 14 and her king husband sends the boys to come collect her. And they ship her off to Copenhagen to go meet the king. But they are getting absolutely pummeled by the ocean the entire time. It is a rocky ride to Denmark, and she does not think she's going to make it. So she's writing letters back to her Aunt Margaret being like, LOL bitch, I'm about to die. But then she arrives safe and sound and meets Christian at his summer home. She changes her name to Elizabeth, and the two of them make the marriage legal in August 1515. And this child bride is named Queen of Denmark and Norway on the same day. But despite the little Habsburg trying very hard to fit in with King Christian's family, it just was not a smooth transition. She's only 14, the king's almost 20 years older than her, and he's in a long-term serious relationship with his mistress. He and his mistress had been together for like 7 or 8 years by this point, and they had been together before he was even named king. So the arrival of his 14-year-old politically arranged bride didn't exactly pull his attention away. And King Christian and his mistress Davik are actually one of the most famous love stories in Norwegian history. She was lower born than him, but she really advocated for like workers' rights, and he did as well while they were together. But this relationship would eventually lead to the downfall of it all. And the two of them would be the subjects of artists and poets for centuries to come. So while Isabella is a child bride chillin', he's off with Davik. However, sadly, Davik would eat some poisoned cherries in 1517 and drop dead, devastating King Christian. And Christian is a combination of pissed off and horrified and starts turning on the Danish nobles. And then Torben Ox, an aristocrat, was ultimately accused and killed for the crime of killing Davik. Which of course kicked off a big separation between the king and the nobility. Because the nobility are like, why the fuck would you kill off a nobility for someone in the common working class dying? That's not how we do things. But the Habsburgs are stoked because they really fucking hated that the mistress had any pull in Christian's court. And they wanted Isabella to act as the queen and have all of that pull. Because even Davik's mother had a spot as a top counselor for King Christian, which again, the nobility didn't like because they thought it made him more sympathetic to the working class. But that same year that shit goes down with the mistress, shit also goes down with the Swedish. But eventually, Christian ropes in enough allies to defeat the Swedish. They kill the Swedish king, and he and Isabella become the king and queen of Sweden. Well, I mean, she's going by Elizabeth at this point, but we're just gonna keep calling her Isabella. And to avoid the fallen king's supporters from turning on him, he charges them all as heretics, and puts 82 of them to death in the Stockholm bloodbath in 1520, cementing him in Swedish history as Christian the Tyrant. And even though Isabella is now the Queen of Sweden, she never actually goes to Sweden. At the time when he was taking the throne, she was pregnant, so she stayed behind in Denmark to run the show while Chrissy was gone. And while she's girl-bossing the Danish, her husband is getting overthrown in Sweden. Because the Swedish noblewomen that didn't get executed started telling everyone that Christians starved and abused them while they were in captivity. However, praising Isabella for being a merciful queen. So King Christian is just racking up these enemies all around his kingdoms. And in 1523, he gets deposed as King of Denmark and exiled. And the new king, his uncle, not wanting to piss off Isabella and the powerful Habsburg family, writes to Isabella and is like, yeah, no, your husband sucks and he's not the king anymore, but you can stay. And we will give you any money you want to stay. Like, you will be looked after. No need to go run to your brother and start anything. And Isabella is like, my man, my man, my man. And she follows him out of Denmark instead. So now the couple and their little family are going around to places like Germany trying to gather support. Yes, they have Isabella's brother and the Habsburgs, but they need more than that. And while in Germany, our Queen Isabella starts learning about Lutheranism and the Protestant movement, seemingly being really into it. And King Christian is like, babe, are you fucking nuts? You are a Spanish Habsburg. Keep that Protestant bullshit to yourself. I'm trying to get my throne back. Please don't piss off your family. Oh my God. And she's like, you're so right, but also I am going to do Protestant communion sometimes. And while they're trying to gather support, they also head over to England to meet with her maternal aunt, Queen Catherine of Aragon, and that weird gross man that she married. And they stay there with her and that greasy fuck for a while, and then they go back to the mainland, again on their mission, trying to get support to put Christian back on the Danish throne. But unfortunately, all this traveling around would end up with Isabella catching an illness. And she would be sick for most of the year in 1525, until her death, January 19th, 1526, at age 24. Leaving behind her children, John, Dorothea, and Christina. And even though she had both Protestant and Catholic communion, after she died, the Habsburgs were like, actually, she was 100% Catholic, couldn't even spell Lutheranism, case closed, amen. And she was buried. Later, King Henry VIII of England would try to marry her daughter Christina, and Christina of Denmark would tell him to pound salt. The end. And that's the story of Isabella of Austria, Queen Elizabeth of Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. So make sure you're following me because we have 4 more siblings to get through, and all of these kids either became queens or emperors. So we'll see you in the next one.